Welcome back. Well, let's start here. The arrest of former President Jacob Zuma has sparked outrage in Kwa-Zulu Natal. His supporters have taken to the streets in protest, damaging properties, looting businesses, and even setting alight trucks. All this to demand his release. Now, political analyst Professor Protas Madlala joins me now to discuss this matter, as well as perhaps come up with possible solutions that the ruling party may be able to implement in order to resolve this issue before it spreads. Thanks always, Prof, for speaking to us this evening. A very good evening to you. So the presidency has called for calm and restraint following the protests in Kwa-Zulu Natal. So have provincial authorities. But what is being done and what is being said, is it enough to quell the tension in the province?
Certainly, it's not enough, but it's better than nothing. My biggest fear is that if you look at history of violence or bad things in this country, they all started in Kwa-Zulu Natal. Talk about apartheid, it was started here in Durban. The violence of the 80s, it started here in Durban, and then it spread out throughout the whole country. So unless this kind of sporadic violence is nipped in the bud before it can spread in other parts of our country, that's worrying me. Because our former president, Jacob Zuma, he was only a charismatic leader in Kwa-Zulu Natal. It was countrywide. So there is a potential that this can actually go into our other provinces if it's not nipped in the bud.
Yeah, I hear you, Prof. And also there's this argument, though, that the country and the province cannot be held at ransom by the dissent of the few. But is that even an accurate assumption? Indeed, is his influence that powerful that we could likely see the entire country consumed by the protests demanding for his release?
Well, this issue is very complicated. I'm talking about this violence. Violence for the banning or the blockade or the blockading of roads in this country. It's a weekly phenomenon. I mean, last week we had a similar incident on the south coast between Durban and Potchefstroom in Hibadin, to be precise. And then a few weeks ago, we had similar sporadic violence in Richards Bay. It seems to be a weekly event. So now comes the incarceration of the former state president. So in a way, I'm cynically feeling that there is some opportunistic elements using the incarceration of the president. So that they can make their demands, or whatever demands that they make. My argument, if the president were to be released tomorrow, will this violence stop in Kwa-Zulu Natal? And my answer is saying no, it won't stop.
Yeah. Well, then, Prof, that means that if I may, that just means that there's always been tension bubbling under. The clock has always been ticking where public unrest has been concerned, that perhaps this was the camel or the straw that broke the camel's back that allowed for such opportunism to actually take place. So does that mean that South Africa, or even the province in Kwa-Zulu Natal, has been divided for a long time and they've just needed a channel to funnel their frustration?
You can safely say so. But my fear is that this could actually spread out throughout the whole country. Because it's not only Kwa-Zulu Natal people who are disgruntled in terms of service delivery. It's all over the country. The cry is out there. You go to the Free State, you go wherever. People have similar cries. No water, no electricity, no this, no jobs, no COVID relief funds, stolen. The cries are all over. And unfortunately, Kwa-Zulu Natal is always a trendsetter for things like this.
And as you said, that Kwa-Zulu Natal is always a trendsetter for these kinds of protests. May I ask, why is that the case?
It's difficult to say. Honestly, it will need some psychics or historians to say that, unfortunately, but everything started here, even apartheid started here in Durban. So the violence started here in front of my eyes in the 80s. So, unfortunately, it has become a trend. I don't know. There could be a number of factors that contribute to that. It could be that maybe the majority of the people speak the same language. Could be they're more or less they're the same educational level. I don't know. That's a subject for another debate.
Yeah, Prof, and unfortunately that subject, it looks as though it may slowly be dawning upon us. Let's talk a little bit about the appropriate government intervention. We've heard calls from government, especially in the province, saying that they are calling for calm. People should exercise restraint. The presidency released a statement earlier today calling for calm and restraint. But other people listening at this point, and should law enforcement be that much more, can I say, harsher, or that much more deliberate and intentional about indeed imposing calm at this point?
Let's stay with the political call. Unfortunately, it's legit, it's nice and good. It's good to do that. But where does it come from? It comes from a leadership that is very alienated from the grassroots. You know, before 1994, our liberation movement was very close to the ground. The center could hold. Whereas now, post-1994, the current leadership is riding in high horses. So there is the center is ready, doesn't hold. Everything is falling apart. The government has lost legitimacy. It has lost connection. It's alienated from the people. I can see them booing to whoever is saying, stop this violence. They will say, who are you? Whereas you couldn't say that in the 80s because the leadership and the grassroots or the masses were well connected.
We'll leave it there. Political analyst Protas Madlala just giving us an analytical breakdown of what is happening in the KZN province. As we continue with the show throughout this evening, we'll be bringing you more voices as we unpack this matter. Truly, truly, at this point in time, can the country be held at ransom by the dissent of the people in Kwa-Zulu Natal, or are we indeed being naive to think that the influence of the former president, who is currently incarcerated, does not extend way beyond Kwa-Zulu Natal, and that we could be realizing a spillover effect? We'll determine that as the show progresses. But let's